Welcome everybody to our live energy update. My name is Jona Bryndis. I'm airing from my outside healing tent here in Central Florida, and we are going to examine this next week, February 9th till 15th together. And I can already promise you that if you are a little sensitive, this is going to be an interesting energy update for you. Okay, so don't think that you have to agree with everything, but I want to prepare you guys here with this little talk for a week that, the barometer that you see here on the left, that just gives an intensity gauge for you, but it's really not expressing the quality of this week. Okay, this is a week with tons of downloads, with tons of code breakers. This can be a week that you may look back as a game changer for yourself. Okay, so let's look at this in a deeper way here as it's recorded live, and I do want to respond to your questions. If you keep them short enough for me to read and talk at the same time, I can give you personal responses. This is going to stir up some stuff here next week, so let's dive straight into it. What is it that is happening here? Okay, so besides these normal intensities that we feel as energetically sensitives, as empaths, we always sort of feel at the effect of something from the outside. And the purpose of these energy updates is not to give you an excuse or to make this sort of look like, oh, it's just collective energies. No, when I'm reading out the collective, what I'm reading out is something that could be seen as a culmination of all these processes, these inner processes that people go through on the entire planet. And therefore, it's not really a prediction. It's actually something, I've mentioned this before, that has happened already. So I'm just sort of the translator here, the transcoder, for you to become able to contextualize this. Like, what does this mean? What does this mean to me? Why is this coming up right now? And the reason why this is so important for next week is because you're going to have to deal with a lot of intense stuff within yourself, okay? Rage, anger, resentment, disappointment, grief, all kinds of I don't want to call them emotions, because those are all part of, who we are and what we go through. So yes, they will trigger intense emotions for you, but that doesn't mean that they are responsible. They didn't cause anything, okay? These things, that come in from, within yourself, okay? Those are things that need to be looked at. Those are yours. It doesn't matter what triggered it. It doesn't matter who said what, whether it was collective energies or whether it was your child driving you nuts or your partner or your boss. It doesn't matter. The moment you're dealing with these inner emotions, that's the moment when it's yours. Okay? And so the reason why I called this energy update here for this next week in between is because we're going to feel a sense of, something old needs to go, but the new isn't coming in yet. So we don't really have resolutions, we don't have fixes, and this triggers a lot of problems in us, especially those of us who are more on the codependent side of things. And if we look at the larger perspective here, the collective and all, what this means, for us as a whole sort of population here, whole society, is that, this old system is dying. We talked about this many times, and this is apparent. It feels antiquated. Nobody can really connect with politics or with the stuff, that was kind of like up there, as the most important thing for us in the past, 50 years or 100 years. It all feels old. And we feel that there's something new that needs to come in. But that isn't quite there yet. And so it really points at ourselves here. Like we are standing in this in-between space right now. We are standing in the middle or walking through this transition. Okay? And this is the moment where we can make choices, or better say, where we can become more aware of our choices. So the lesson here for this next week is, how well can we actually become aware of what we are choosing when we are allowing this in, when we are indulging in this, when we are ingesting in this, when we are allowing this person to be in our space, or when we are allowing, certain beliefs or certain mindsets, all right, to dominate the way we perceive things. That is the big question here for this next week. And that's why it can be quite intense, because, everything points at us. All right. And in order to not get overwhelmed, because there's a lot of sort of childish, sort of pain that is coming forward in this week, it triggers our pain body. And with it, of course, all this traumatic stuff, this unresolved stuff, all the wounds, not that we are all, flawed, but there are things in us, that can become blind spots, that can be completely unaware to us, even though we think we've got this all figured out, or we are like standing, in the middle of it. There'll be things that we cannot see, and a lot of that points back at our childhood. And so when I call it childish, I don't mean this in a dismissive or degrading way. I mean this in an almost overwhelming intensity, where you feel zoomed back into states that remind you of yourself when you were a child, like maybe in form of powerlessness, or in form of a rage, that you have never even experienced with yourself before. And I want to warn you guys who have a big family, kids, dogs, neighbors, okay, even, maybe some of the groups that you're in, and at work as well, obviously. There is some explosive stuff that's going to come forward this weekend. Most of this doesn't really have a true cause, or at least the cause isn't where, people are pointing at, or what you think it is. This is the collective effect, okay? So there'll be these things, these wounds triggered in all of us, and, our pets and our kids are the ones that can contextualize this the least. They also have the least overlay, but they're like in those wounds right now. And so when they act up, and when you feel completely worn out as a parent, or as a manager of a group, or just sort of trying to deal with other people, this could even apply to clients that you have, all right? No matter what it is, like customer service people, then you will have a really hard time, because people are going to just freak out on you, all right? And this isn't your fault. This isn't, maybe, if you react to it and escalate along with it, yes, then, you're choosing, to go with this. But if you can seek the space in between, that is, the moment, from the moment where you feel things coming on to the moment where you act it out, this space I'm referring to, there you can find, what this is truly about. So it's actually not about the in-between, but the in-between is what will help you to figure this out, because it's actually the underneath, all right? So energetically, this is a positive momentum, because it brings in the higher harmonics, the higher frequencies of connection, of awareness, of mindfulness. And with it, these downloads that I've mentioned here in the beginning, which may or may not tell you anything what this means, but you'll feel this, that there is something that shifts within you without knowing what this really is. And where this is going to point at is at all the things that you've been externalizing, your sense of self, your self-worth, your understanding of who you are, what your values are, what your integrity is, to others. To others, maybe, your partner, your children, your work environment, or even, society at large, like how you're being seen through the eyes of others. And there's a lot of conflict with your needs this week because this is triggered. You're going to feel like you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to fix something. You're going to have to, or you're going to have to like try harder. You're going to really have to, shine. You really have to like, get this validation that you think you need. Only to come to that place where you realize, okay, it is my sense of self here, that is in question. And so every time, you get pulled into this, like, I need more from this person, or I need to try harder in order to get this. You can be 100% sure that you're already, on this track of externalizing your power. What does externalizing our power mean? That means that you've made yourself dependent on how somebody else reacts, what they're giving back to you, or, how they're responding to you. And this is where, the pain body in conjunction with our ego sort of bodes for a toxic mixture. It may be linked to something you said or did, but it's not really your fault. It's not about, defending yourself or, making this customer feel better about themselves. This is about you really standing in your center, in that in-between space, and, really looking at, okay, what does this triggering in me? Okay, what does this make me want to do? Okay, and if you can go to that place, then you understand that, your ego can play massive, massive tricks on you when this, like, how do others see me, gets triggered. So this combination here of your inner child wound, like this early attachment that you had, how you received love and how you perceived yourself through that, okay? Whether you think you have to be in a certain way in order to be worthy to loved, or whether you think you have to do something, okay? That culminates in your false self, which works directly against your true self. It works exactly against the very thing that you are trying to become authentic with. And so when this feels a little bit attacked, okay, and I'm using the word carefully here because, the feeling attacked is one of those characteristics of this time when our pain body gets triggered, all right? This is also where the rage comes from. This is where this powerlessness comes from, and then the exaggerated reaction to it, okay? When you're feeling attacked in who you are, you need to ask yourself, why am I feeling attacked? Or, it can also come in ways where you just simply feel that, what somebody else does, or, how they present themselves really, really rubs you in the wrong way, then same thing. You need to ask yourself what it is actually about that other person that rubs you so badly. What is the mirror in this? What am I seeing, that I'm not liking, that I'm not loving in this other person? Not that you have to love everything about everybody. This is not what I'm talking about. But if something can really get you to this place of rage or powerlessness and this sort of where you don't feel like you're in control of your own reactions anymore, that means that there's something in you triggered, okay, that where you're not congruent, where you're not true with yourself, where you're not fully in your center, okay? And this is why this next week can be a little challenging for all of us, because it will feel like it's, others are throwing us off center. Be it that we don't get what we want, or that we are not expressing what we want or what we need, or that we are too fixated on what we want and what we need, and that we push into others. So, it's a mutual thing, right? I mean, I'm talking about, other people attacking you, but, there's two, that belong to this. So we can find ourselves on either side of this next week. Sometimes maybe multiple times a day, switching between you being the one that feels attacked or you attacking. All right, so you need to look at what this truly triggers in you and what this feedback, you know, where, you know, you're resisting the feedback, and why you need to have this a different way. Why do you want this in a different way? And, you know, for many of you, I mean, I'm going to go deeper into the energy tips here for the Heart Warriors and Patreon subscribers, just so you know, this deeper look in the energetics of things, the chakras that are involved, and how to really work through this. You know, I do this in a longer video for the Patreon subscribers, because not everybody is interested really in the deeper look and going through all the different layers of our being. But, you know, if you're really interested in seeing, you know, the energetic perspective on those things, then check out my Patreon channel. But what it really comes down to, guys, is, you know, our sense of self and ultimately self-love. So if we have a hard time with what is coming as feedback from others and we're resisting this, this means that we are not liking the mirror that we stand in front of. And sometimes it's because we have allowed these toxic relationships, these toxic situations in our lives, or sometimes even enabled them, right? The last 2 weeks was a lot about that. So we have to go and take a deeper look at, you know, whether we are actually, you know, enforcing our boundaries, whether we are actually allowing this in, you know, or whether we are actually promoting this. So toxicity is another good descriptor for this next week. You're going to feel things so clear that you're going to really want to just destroy it. And this is not really the way, you know, this works between us. When we don't like things, when we resist things, and especially in relationships, and next week is Valentine's Day week, okay? So there will be a lot of things where we have all, you know, maybe where we have expectations, you know, how we want Valentine's Day to be like, or, you know, this just sort of the connectedness that we're sort of promising to ourselves, and that won't happen, okay? Then we need to look at our parts here. This new paradigm that is coming in, guys, is something that's going to smack us in the face if we don't do the inside work. The inside work is the part where you look at everything that you relate to, you know, your circumstances, your environment, the people you were with, what you ingest, you know, physically, you know, food-wise and so forth, what you allow in, who you're with, okay, and what you align yourself to. That's your job now in this transition, to become more aware of this. And if you find yourself in toxic situations, toxic relationships with others, then you need to do something about this. All right? Because with these dependencies, all right, and why do I call them dependencies? Because we've externalized our power. And so the moment you externalize your power, then you become dependent on it. And this is also where the rage comes from, because you expecting it back, right? And if that doesn't come back, well, then we get angry, right? But that's no different from a 3-year-old, you know, who throws a tantrum because you didn't buy him or her a lollipop at the checkout from the supermarket. Okay, so you're going to have to understand what these things are that you truly need, and let go of fixating on what you want from the other. Shift your attention, shift your focus to how you want this. Okay, and is this a healthy way? Is this something that supports both of us? Is this based on healthy boundaries? Is this based on, you know, a mutual exchange? Are we both growing through this? And this can also be applied to business endeavors, by the way. This is the new paradigm goes into mutual exchange. And that's why, you know, all the esoteric people, including myself, you know, talk about unified masculine and feminine energies, you know, resolving dualisms. That's why, because our ego in and of itself is very dualistic. It's all or nothing. It's good or bad, you know, light or dark. And, you know, translated into our emotional life, it's, if I don't get this, I'm going to die. all right? Without you, I can't live, okay? And these are all beliefs, all right, that come from this addictive structure of our ego. And another pitch here, the Sacred Self-Healing course that we have, which is not just like some online thing, it's energetic alignments, it's a workbook, and it's a whole community that comes with it, with trainings, you know, every week, every other week, workshops and so forth. So it's like a community of like-minded people who are trying to work through some of these deeper subjects, you know, with others, through sharing, through mutual exchange. And there, you know, we really explain and show why, no matter what dependency you have, no matter what addiction you have, what you're up against is your ego. Because your ego in and of itself is addictive, all right? But specifically here in regards to relationships, that's the part that I wanted to throw at you, you know, and a key word here that comes up a lot with empaths, namely codependency, and then also the empath-narcissist relationship. So those of you who are in the Sacred Self-Healing community, you had a workshop with me on Saturday where we talked about narcissism, the energetic view on that, and how this relates to our inner child wounds, to our attachment problems. All right. But the problem with our ego is that, of course, you know, when we feel like we're not getting what we need, that we immediately sort of victimize ourselves, and then we see everybody else, you know, sort of as narcissistic. This week is going to be a week where you're going to have to look at your own narcissistic tendencies. Okay, and I'm not talking about personality disorder. I'm just talking about the parts in you where you want things a certain way, or where you want a belief to be true, or where you want an illusion, you know, or a fantasy to be your reality, and it doesn't work out. Okay, that's when you have to look at how you deal with this. And narcissism really is a choice where, you know, you basically don't care about the other. You basically, you know, want it your way or the highway. And of course, there's various degrees of this, but ultimately, you know, it's denying your own empathy. And as an empath, guys, this is probably one of the biggest violations, you know, the incongruencies that you can do within, you know, where you more or less drop your own empathy, okay? And without knowing it, and this is the hard part to see, because you think you're the one that's victimized, but without knowing it, you trying to control, you trying to manipulate the other. Now, in codependency, and I want to say that codependency, you know, when you talk about addiction, you know, codependency always comes in because, you know, psychologically, it's basically the other side of the addict, okay, the other half of the addict. That's why they often called co-addiction or the co-addict, all right? It comes up because there's always two, you know, that belong to this spiel, you know, this toxic spiel. And in empath circles, guys, the codependency rate is like almost 99%. Okay, so if you know, as an empath, you know, you're seeing yourself as an empath, if you know, can also identify yourself as a codependent, okay, then you're very close to better understanding your empathy, okay? But you need to qualify this a bit more, because just because you're energetically sensitive doesn't make you an empath. Just because you're really, really good at reading other people's energies, just because you're really, really good at projecting your own to others, just because you're really, really good at anticipating what they need and, you know, fixing things for them and making them love you through that, does not mean that you're an empath. That means that you are an energetically sensitive person with codependent tendencies and probably also narcissistic tendencies. The boundaries between those two are very marginal. And I know this is not what most of you want to hear, because, you know, we feel so traumatized and victimized by narcissists in our life, and that is absolutely valid. There is this fatal attraction between the empath and the narcissist. But what you've got to understand is what glues both together, okay? The thing that connects both is the codependency, is the externalization of my sense of self, my self-love, and, you know, my goals and my values and all that to the other. It's a dependency. So maybe this helps you to process some of your trauma with a narcissistic relationship, you know, with a relationship to a narcissist. If you see the other sense of emptiness and insecurity and codependency in that person, it's very, very powerless, you know, to a degree, to having to force others, you know, to do it your way. But what often stays undetected for us is how we try to manipulate others from behind in a covert way. And how do we do this? By taking advantage of our energetic sensitivity. Now, I've talked about this before. There's often also a connection here, and it's very hard to say what was there first. There's a connection between childhood trauma and energetic sensitivity. So a lot of us empaths had quite a difficult upbringing. Now, nobody has a perfect upbringing. Nobody has perfect parents, and nobody is a perfect parent, okay, guys? I mean, insufficient parenting is a standard term, okay? We all have our own stuff, and therefore, you know, we're never going to be, you know, in this sort of perfect, selfless place. But, you know, some of us have experienced, you know, abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, manipulation, physical or even sexual abuse that has traumatized us beyond just sort of the normal sort of growing up pain that we go through, you know, as a teenager and young adult. Okay, and here is where you'll find a lot of these keys to your own codependency. Okay, but it's very, very difficult to say what was there first. If we became good energy readers because we felt we had to, because it was so unsafe, you know, growing up, because we didn't really know, you know, who we are, and we constantly receive this feedback that we are not good enough, or that we're not lovable, only if we act in a certain way, or only if we are successful, or only if we are perfect, or only if, you know, we please the other, or if we conform. You see how convoluted this is. When your pain body is activated, guys, all this kind of stuff comes up. And the core of all of this has to do with self-love and the sense of self. Now, how much can you connect with your true self? How much are you willing to be with yourself, with your own feelings? And I'm going to go deeper into this here with the energy tips, but I wanted to show you guys a chart that I did here right before the session, and that is how you know that you are a codependent. How do you know that you are a codependent? Guys, can you give me a heart or a thumbs up or whatever if you think you are codependent already? Like those of you who know this for sure, can you just give me like a heart or something here? Who of you thinks you are a codependent? Oh, there, the hearts are flying. Yes. Okay, this is cool. All right. So, you know, being aware, I mean, it's not about the label. All right. Don't misunderstand me here. This is about what I just explained, you know, in this long-winded way. Oh, this culmination of fears, this culmination of powerlessness, of overwhelm, of, you know, not feeling good enough. And let's, you know, here within this energy update, look at how you know that you are a codependent. Now, are you a codependent if you have one or two of these traits? You know, I mean, we all go through phases. You know, we have different developmental stages where we go through questioning certain things and see, you know, like when we're a teenager, you know, we hear all these love songs and we see all these movies and we have this conditioning, right? This programming through the collective. And so we believe in things that, that are unreflected. So as we grow older, as we mature, we begin, okay, and listening to this, this may be sort of like way out there for you. If you are 30 and you're listening to this, you may feel familiar with some of these things. Okay, this is starting to kick in for you. And if you're 50 and you're listening to this, and you're still dealing with these issues, okay, that means that you've been codependent all your life. And this new paradigm, guys, does not allow dependencies. Not to weed, not to alcohol, not to medication, not to relationships, not to, getting your sense of self through others, not to your twin soul, nothing. Some of that will become aware to you this week. And it is no surprise, that the giveaway for this week, as I always give something away every week here for you guys listening and participating, are 3 tickets for the new energy healing modality that we have called Codependency Healing. Those are 3 energy sessions that illuminate and sort of energetically work through the 3 different layers of codependency within us, some of which we just looked at. And the premiere is going to be Saturday night at 11 p.m. here Eastern Time. And if you would like to be part of this, if you would like to explore energy healing, it's a guided session. That means you're going to hear my voice guiding you through an energy process. And it will feel just like a guided meditation, but there is energy coding that is being triggered. And I'm sitting on the other end of it, reading and scanning your energy while you're in this place. And I am reflecting this back to you in energy coaching, which we here at transCODES do in our forum, this self-healing community where, you can directly ask for feedback and so forth, comment back, share, and so forth. So what do you have to do in order to qualify for this giveaway? I need you to type, "I am no longer afraid of being and feeling myself." I'm no longer afraid of being and feeling myself. So whether you are watching this here from Instagram, Facebook, or the transCODES forum, because we have a live feed in there as well, those of you, the first 3 of you who type this in the commentary, will qualify for free tickets. If you are interested in participating, regardless of whether you want a ticket or not, then please check the link here in the description. Send me hearts, send me likes here to this video or the edited version that's coming out tonight. And please, please share those videos, okay? This is this information, that really hits home with a lot of people, but is barely talked about, all right? Yes, and I want to take a few minutes here to respond to you. Yes. Yes, Cindy, you're right. It's so hard to identify when you constantly question yourself, what your reality is. It's so difficult. And this requires us, to really be wanting and actually seeking that space in between. The space in between, guys, is the space where you are sitting with yourself, where you're sitting with your feelings, your sensations, and the subconscious reactions that you have internally, where you're sitting with yourself, where you're experiencing and internalizing yourself. And this is what the codependent avoids, which is why we become so dependent on the feedback from the outside. And the narcissist then is the one that tries to manipulate this to the point where they're constantly controlling the feedback. Okay, and there's traits of that, and we can look into this next time if you want to, how to spot that you're a narcissist or that your partner is a narcissist. That's always very entertaining. All right, guys. I hope this didn't throw you off too much. Deep stuff here coming in for this next week. Thank you for your support. If you want to dive deeper into this, or if you are interested because you're a therapist or you're a life coach or whatever, how to actually approach this, then check out my Patreon channel. There I publish, self-healing strategies and, strategies that can help to get to the deeper aspects of it that are sometimes not, that sometimes can't be addressed through the mind or through the emotions alone, or behavioral therapy. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your hearts, and thank you for your feedback. Keep sharing. Bye-bye.